Today's challenge, build up your self-esteem and celebrate you. How's it going, reinventors? I'm Amelia, and this is Reinventing You. This is the channel where you can be inspired to reinvent yourself. I want you to live a life of joy, fulfillment, and purpose, and I believe you can do that by reinventing your life. We're in the middle of the 2 in 2022 challenge. If this is your first time here, welcome. If this is your 31st time here, or however many times, I'm glad you're back. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. I am so glad that you're here and you have made it through the 2 in 2022 challenge. This is the next to last week, and I want to talk about celebrating you and your self-esteem. So if you're one of those who took the 2 in 2022 challenge, please let me know in the comments and, kind of check in, let me know how it's going. And I would also like to know what you're celebrating right now. In my last video, I talked about noting when you failed, what you have learned, and then what you've done right. And that's really important because if you know what you've done right, then you can celebrate that. You can really focus on things that have gone well. And as I've said in my last video, you are going to fail. You are going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. And a lot of times out of your control, as we've seen in the last 2 years. But you can still celebrate the things that are going well, the things you've done right, even the lessons that you've learned can be celebrated. And all this has to do with your self-esteem. Now, even though we've listed off the mistakes we've made, the things we've learned, and what we've done right, and some celebrating, we really can't stop there. Really, we've got to get to the root of the problem, and that is our self-esteem. Often you and I are our own worst enemies. We're the worst critics. We're the worst people who put us down. I mean, we are going to be hardest on ourselves. And that's what makes reinventing ourselves so difficult so many times. And it also hurts us when it's a long-term commitment. And that's what reinventing yourself really is. So I want to just delve a little bit deeper, and I want to talk about 3 things you need to stop doing and 3 things you need to start doing. Let's begin. So the first thing you need to stop doing is stop letting your past, your childhood, your things you've done, your past career, your past relationships, all these kinds of things define you. Stop having that as your narrative. And it usually goes something like this. Well, I can't because I grew up blah, blah, blah. I'm unable to do this because my parents never taught me this. Or every time I tried this, I was met with this by people around me. Or I had a teacher who said I would never amount to anything. Or somebody told me I would always be pleasantly plump. Or I was always going to fail in relationships. Or maybe I've looked back and said, I don't know how to have a good relationship. Or I am a bad person because, or I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, all of those narratives that you and I have in our heads. You've got to stop saying those things. You've got to stop saying those things aloud. You've got to stop thinking them. You've got to stop writing them down. I mean, you just can't. You have got to change your narrative. You've got to stop that kind of story. The second thing you've got to stop doing is stop listening to toxic people. Stop listening to the people who do not have your back and who are simply in it for the gossip or in it because they think they know you or they think they know what's best for you. Now, sometimes these people are not people you can, quote, get rid of. I mean, they're in your family or immediate social circle that you just can't, there's not really a way you can get rid of them, but you can control what you listen to. And so sometimes what you have to say is, I'm going to stop listening to this person. They're toxic. I'm going to stop listening to that person because I know that they have not been in the arena. They do not know what it's like to try to reinvent yourself. They do not know what it's like to really go to battle against, all of these things that are challenging me. They don't know what my fears are. They don't really know me. They do not have my best interests at heart. And you have to stop listening to them. I've done several videos about bad advice that I have gotten and other people have gotten. And sometimes it's really tough because you hear these people and you think, oh, well, I hadn't thought about it that way. But a lot of times, in fact, most of the time, you really have to stop paying attention to them and giving them serious consideration. They are not good for you. So you got to stop letting your past and toxic people color your world. But let me tell you, you've got to stop with the self-criticism. You cannot continue to pull yourself down. I was talking in the very first example of letting your past define you. Well, a lot of times what happens when you let your past define you and you have all these other toxic people saying negative things about you, you start to believe it. And then you do something and maybe it's a step forward in reinventing yourself, but then you say, well, so-and-so said I never could do this, or my teacher said I would never amount to anything. So you're just going to have to stop that. You're going to have to say, you're too busy, you're too fat, you're too weak, you're too whatever. You've got to stop the self-criticism. You and I can be our own worst critics and our own worst enemies. We have got to stop. So those are the 3 things you need to stop. But if you're going to have those things you're going to stop, you're going to have to replace them with something, or those same narratives are going to come up again and again. So instead of those 3 things, these are the things that you need to do. You need to give yourself I can statements. I am statements. You're going to have to change your narrative. Even if you came from a particular background or experience, you can say things like, I am strong because I lived through this, or I've overcome these things, or I am a good person because even though all this happened to me, I've been able to do so and so. You have got to change the narrative. Instead of a, downer kind of story, you've got to have a happy ending. You've got to, because you're in control of that. You're in control of thinking what you can do. You've got to be that little engine that could. You have got to have faith in yourself and your own strengths and your abilities. You would not be here watching this video and making it through to this point in the video if you did not have that inside of you. So you need to just really grasp that and say, I'm going to change my narrative. I'm going to embrace the parts of me that do well and can do this, and I'm going to believe in myself. You need to have things like, I can, blank. I'm capable of discovering, blank. I'm capable of accomplishing, blank. I like this thing about myself because you can do it. The second thing you need to start doing, those toxic people and the friends that think they know you, then you need to turn that around and think about, remember your 1-inch piece of paper, I talked about your support, and that's really the best thing you can do. If you have support, then you can say, hey, I'm trying to build up my self-esteem. What are some really good things that you like about me, or strengths you've noticed about me? Maybe you have to get somebody else to tell you that because you can't see it yourself. And that is really powerful when you have other people, telling you this. I know that several years ago, it's been several years ago, I went on this retreat in which at the very end you receive letters and cards from people who just kind of cheer you on and pull you up and say great things about you. And it was really helpful. For a long time, I had a scrapbook that I kept with all of these letters and cards because sometimes they've been in my life where I've needed to go back and seeing the positive things that people have say about me and write about me and see in me that I don't see. So it's really important that you take those people that really have your back, that have been fighting in the arena. Brene Brene Brown talks about that. If the people have not been in the arena with you, they really have no say-so over what you can and can't do. They are the ones really that you need the advice. If they've been in the arena with you, if they've had the similar experience, then they can, kind of help you. But they're also going to be the people, I know this, people on your 1 inch square piece of paper need to be the people who are saying positive things about you and helping to build you up. Brene Brown says if they haven't been in the arena with you, then don't listen to them. I'm saying if those people are in the bleachers, they may be calling out and doing all kinds of things, but you just got to focus on your game and what you're doing and ignore all of those shouts. The third thing that you can do is that you need to take a really serious look at yourself in the mirror. In fact, you need to spend some positive time in front of the mirror. And I know this sounds really crazy, but I'm saying this for two reasons. And this came up twice in the recent times. The first thing is Mel Robbins has written another book, and it's called, is it The High Five? Yeah, The High Five Habit. And I wish I had that to show you, but I have it on digital form. I don't have it in a real hardback. But it's called The High Five Habit. And in this book, she talks about the habit she started doing of giving herself a high five in the mirror every morning and really looking at like first thing and really building herself up, and how good that was, or how I guess essential that was in building up her self-esteem. And she had such a good reaction to it when she put it, I think, on Instagram or something and talked about it, and people are like, yes, this is what would help me. Now my son happens to say that high five is old school. And so maybe giving yourself a high five isn't good, but you can give yourself a fist bump. You need to look at yourself first thing in the morning, whether it's a high five or fist bump, or just say positive things about yourself. Now, I know a lot of people, especially women, when they look in the mirror, they're going to critique everything. Look at those wrinkles, look at those gray hairs, look at the fat, look at, the frown, look at the yellow teeth. I don't know, whatever it is. And just start pulling yourself down. And that is not a way to start out the day. In fact, it's much better to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love the twinkle in your eye. I like the way you smile. You can go forth and do great things today. I mean, you have got to look at yourself in the mirror and be your own best cheerleader. Another thing that came up recently was my son was taking a class on Russian and learned that the Russians have a superstition is if you leave the house and you've forgotten something, if you go back to get it and leave again, that's bad luck. Bad things will happen to you during the day. Now, my husband, and sometimes me as well, we tend to forget things every time we leave. So now we kind of understand the bad luck we've been having lately. But it's kind of like, when the black cat goes in front of your path. You've ever heard this? You pull all your pockets out. Okay, so if you go outside, you forget something, you come back in, you have to look at yourself in the mirror. I did this the other day and I made a face at myself, but I thought, well, wait a minute. What if instead of making a face or being really silly, you said, you've got this, Amelia, or you can do it, or this day is going to get better. I mean, positive things about yourself, about your day, about your expression, whatever it is. Otherwise, you're just going to be, oh my God, I forgot it again, or my keys, or my umbrella, or whatever it is. And like, I'm so absent-minded, I'm stupid, blah, blah, blah. Instead, say, hey, you're a great person. You have so much going on and it's all good, but you just need to focus on this one thing and you've got it. You've got this day. It's going to be good. You have got to spend that time in the mirror and you've got to say positive things. Now, when I read Mel Robbins' book, I did realize one of my problems is I don't look at myself in the mirror. That's how much I don't want to see myself, because I will be that self-critical. So I have taken, now I don't do it, I admit, I don't do it every time, but I will take some time every day to look at myself in the mirror and think positive thoughts, whatever it is, about my looks, about my abilities, about the day. I have to do that to build myself up, and you can too. Now, these are 3 simple things you can stop doing and then start doing these things to help build yourself up. Now, that is not going to be the end all. If you are really having a hard time with your Self-Esteem, I do recommend either a coach or a therapist. They will help you through building up your self-esteem and can get some of the other issues that maybe, you have this narrative and things that happened in your past, and they can help you work through all of that. So I highly recommend that. Now, I saw this quote just a few days, well, I guess it's been a while, but I actually saw it a couple of days ago that I had written it down. It says, talking about our problems is our greatest addiction. Break the habit. Talk about your joys. And that's my challenge for you, is that when you stop doing these things and you start doing things, start talking about your joys. Start talking about your accomplishments. And I'm not talking about bragging, but you just need to kind of build yourself up instead of saying, yeah, all these health problems that I have and things that are going badly in my life. Instead, say, these are the things that are going right for me and I want to celebrate them. In fact, that's a great point right there. In fact, I can't tell you how many times I've told folks on my videos is when things go well, celebrate that. It could be a pat on the back. You could go out and buy yourself a new piece of clothing. You can get a set of stickers and give yourself a sticker for that calendar day. Whatever it is, do something to celebrate the things that have gone well. In fact, this is a great time to call up one of those people on your 1-inch square piece of paper or send them a text and say, hey, this is what I did today, or I just accomplished this or completed this. Isn't this wonderful? Get that affirmation. Celebrate what you've done right. You can do it. I'm so glad you're here. I'm glad you watched this video. If you leave me a comment in the comments below, I want to hear about your joys that you're celebrating, things that you've done right, and feel good about yourself. I'm Amelia. This is Reinventing You. Have a great one.